everyone. We're going to get started. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Social Science Department to our speaker series, this first speaker series of the winter 2012 term. It is my honor and privilege to introduce you to Melanie Crutchley, who is an esteemed colleague and a very good friend of mine, who will be giving the talk today. Melanie was born in South Africa, which is an area of the world that has a very different perspective on food than we do here in North America. So that's perhaps where the root of her interest in this topic came. Melanie then did her undergraduate training in Kitchener-Waterloo, where she received both a degree in biology and a degree in psychology at Wilfrid Laurier University. She was able to fuse her passions for biology and psychology in her graduate training, where she did a master's degree in neuroscience here at the University of Western Ontario. And she has been teaching with us in the Social Science Department since 2010, where she teaches a number of psychology classes. Many of you are students of hers, I'm sure. And recently she's designed a new food course that fuses her passions of biology and psychology, where she investigates food from a psychological, societal, and all these different perspectives. And she'll be talking to you today about the illusions of food and how the societal and psychological implications of that perpetuate the illusions that she'll be discussing with you. So without further ado,
it's great to be here, and it's an honor for me. I do very much enjoy the topic, and so it's my goal today to share a little bit of expertise and a lot of love for the topic. So without further ado, I'll jump in. There we go. And you need to know before we go through this talk that the theme of the whole speaker series is illusions. So many other speakers throughout the last term and the rest of this term will talk about their perspective on illusions. And so I went about thinking about how can we think about food in terms of illusions. And what I came up with is many people in North America, although we like to think we know a lot about food, there may actually be a lot that we don't know, or even if we do know, we tend to ignore. Okay? So I'm going to cover a few illusions today. We're going to talk about some illusions of safety, health, nutrition, government, money and costs, and environment as well, because I think it's very important to look at food and environment interactions. We're going to start with safety. Here in North America, we like to think we're safe. We're immune from a lot of violence, we're immune from a lot of diseases, and so therefore we're very comfortable just living. Okay? And one of the reasons why we may be very comfortable with just living is that there are a number of government regulations in place to hopefully keep us safe. Okay? Now, do they always keep us safe? Well, that's up to you guys to decide. The first thing I want to tell you is about genetically modified foods. So genetically modified food is one where a scientist or a group of scientists has gone into the plant's DNA and has actually changed the genetic material in some way. They might have added something, taken something out, and just made it, in their minds, more favorable. Okay, so that seems pretty good, but currently there is no government regulation that says genetically modified food has to be labeled. So when you go into the grocery store and you pick up your favorite box of crackers, you don't know whether the wheat in those crackers was genetically modified or is unmodified. So it's not labeled, okay? And that's a problem, especially since some people claim that genetically modified food gives them allergies above and beyond just the regular food, okay? A lot of controversy around whether you can be allergic to genetically modified foods, but a lot of people say you can, okay? And there are two studies that I want to talk to you about relating to this. The first is one that discovered that when they fed rats a regular food, for instance, a regular wheat protein that they were not allergic to, then they fed them that wheat protein with a pea protein that was genetically modified that they were allergic to, they actually developed an allergy to the wheat protein that they were not previously allergic to. That's quite surprising, because that is one very powerful theory for why we are developing allergies so frequently in today's society, right? And then the second sort of scary topic that I've discovered is that something called horizontal gene transfer. So the way this works is that the genetically modified foods that we're eating, it has been shown that the genes that have been placed into those foods can exit out of those foods and go into the bacteria that are living in your gut. Now that bacteria is essential for you to be living and produces a lot of the vitamins that we need. But there's nothing to say that that doesn't happen to you. Maybe the genes that are now in your bacteria in your gut might change with your DNA too. Okay? It's possible. Hasn't been proven yet. And again, we don't prove things in science, but there hasn't been a huge amount of research into this area yet. And I would like to see that, because that's kind of a scary topic if you think about it. Okay? Now, if the government regulations don't keep us safe, maybe the government organizations do, like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and our local health units, like the Middlesex London Health Unit Dine Safe program. I'm a big fan. I think we do need organizations to keep us safe and help inspect the companies that make our food, but I think it is a bit of an illusion that we are completely safe. For instance, take the Maple Leaf Foods meat processing plant tragedy that happened in 2008. Okay, that about, I think 22 people died. Yeah, 22 people died and hundreds more fell ill because they were infected with listeria. And tragically, it really does affect older adults and children more so than middle adults. So you guys would be fine because you're pretty healthy. But it would be children who died from this, or your grandparents, for instance, that would die. So again, we like to think we're safe, but we're not always. And another example of this is the Walkerton crisis. Does anyone remember this? It's way back in 2000, but you might remember this. So thousands of people actually fell ill from this one because E. coli was found in the water. Okay, E. coli, probably know, a very bad bacteria, and it actually causes bloody diarrhea. Who wants that, right? But what was really scary about this one when I was looking into it was that the executives of the company, the water company, actually knew about the E. coli in the water a few days before they alerted health officials. So people were drinking the water for a few days, not knowing that there were actually people out there who knew how dangerous it was. That is a big concern, because even if we have these organizations that are supposed to be protecting us, the companies also need to have a responsibility to protect us as well. Okay? And if you think you're going to get out of a water crisis like this by drinking bottled water, you have another think coming. Okay? Health Canada believes that bottled water is not any safer than tap water, especially because many sources of bottled water are municipal sources. That means it comes from the tap. They literally sit there with their bottle, tuck it under the tap, bottle it up, and serve it to you, or sell it to you. They charge you $1.25. Okay? So, not any safer. Okay. That leads kind of into illusions about health. We like to think we're healthy, or at least that we know how healthy we are. Okay? And I'm going to challenge that thinking. Okay? The first way is that we know how healthy we are. Okay? Do you guys know whether you are normal weight, overweight, underweight, that kind of thing? We like to think we do. Okay? In reality, we may not actually know that. Many people are really bad at guessing their weight status. In fact, they did one study where they studied a few thousand parents, and about 50% of those parents who were overweight actually said that their weight was about right. Okay? So that means 50%, if that's to be generalized to the rest of the population, that means about 50% of us are overweight and don't even realize it. So we can't even do anything about it. Okay? So that's bad in itself, but what about their children? Okay, it actually turns out that those parents, not even just the overweight ones, all of those, 25% of those parents did not recognize that their children were overweight. Okay, that's 1 in 4 parents did not recognize their children were overweight. Now they were more accurate about girls, so maybe that's a societal thing about girls, that they're more accurate. And another thing that made them more accurate was if they got to select a picture. So if they put a picture of a fat child, or an overweight child, or a normal weight child, or an underweight child, their parents were better at picking it. So things that we maybe need to think about. Now, weight and eating are really highly related. So if we don't know how much we weigh, maybe we don't know how much we're eating. Okay, and it turns out that people are actually really bad at estimating the nutritional content of their food. For instance, we tend to underreport the amount of carbohydrates we eat. So we think we eat fewer carbohydrates than we actually do. And we do the same thing for fats. So anybody like fettuccine alfredo pasta, or pizza, or donuts, or cake? There was cake in our lunchroom today. Okay, so we tend to say, oh, well, I had a piece of cake, but it was only this big. In reality, it might have been twice the size. Okay? And we're just generally bad at figuring out how many calories there are in foods. Okay? And who does this? Well, it's not just one or two people who's bad at figuring out. It's actually most of us, the research shows. And the people who are worst at it are people who are obese. And I hate to admit this, but the research shows it that women are also really bad at it as well, more so than average. Okay? I don't know why. I'll happily look into it more, but that's what the research shows right now. Okay? Now, the next illusion I want to discuss is that we know how to make healthy choices. Okay, looking at this hamburger and the salad, I want you to do a vote for me. I want you to put up your hand if you think the salad is healthier. Put up your hand. Okay, good. Anyone think the hamburger is healthier? A few of you, okay. You actually proved my point, is because most of you put up your hand that the salad is healthier. And I would generally agree with you. It's healthier to eat vegetables. But in fact, when we go to a restaurant, we're really out of time, so we run to McDonald's to get a meal, and we take a look at the menu. This salad, which is a crispy chicken salad with a full packet of Caesar salad dressing, is about 800 calories. Okay? The Big Mac McDonald's burger is about 480 calories. So almost half as many calories. Okay? So that's a big deal. However, this salad does have nutrients in it that we need to think about as well, things that we would not necessarily get in a burger. Either way, this leads up into the illusion that we don't actually know really how to make healthy choices. Okay? North Americans are choosing food not just because they need to eat. We have so much food in the grocery store, so much food on campus, so much food in the restaurants, that we don't need to just find food because we need to eat. We are now eating because it is pleasurable to do so. So if I give you two food items, one is a plain piece of lettuce and the other one's a cupcake, you will always choose the cupcake because you can afford to. We live in a very rich society. We choose taste generally over nutrition. Okay? That's a bad thing. And so the instant gratification is really taking over as opposed to thinking about the long-term health costs and the long-term effects. Okay? And one of the biggest reasons why we are noticing that we're becoming worse and worse at eating is that dining out has increased. So about 30% of our food consumption is eating at restaurants. Would you guys say that you eat on campus or you eat at restaurants? I'd say when I was a student that was the case, and I still am guilty of this. Okay? When you eat out at a restaurant, you can not accurately predict the nutritional content of that food because it is not provided for you. Okay? If you go to the grocery store, you pick up a box of cereal, you can look at the nutrition facts table. List how many carbs are in there, list what the sugar content, list the sodium, sometimes usually lists the protein, and sometimes it gives you the daily value of the protein, and many of the other nutrients. But they don't do that at the restaurant. So the restaurant can pack in there things that we love to eat, like butter and salt and sugar, to make it good so that we will like that meal and then we will come back. Okay? Now the dietitians of Canada is right now lobbying the government to get menu labeling so that when we go out to eat, all of the food on the menu will be labeled according to grams of fat, sodium content, those kinds of things, which I really love. But guess what? They've been lobbying for years and years and years and it hasn't gone anywhere. Okay? Now I do find that kind of ironic about the dietitians because it turns out that dietitians are actually really bad at predicting the nutrients in prepared food, so food that's prepared outside of the home. So there's a good reason why they are lobbying the government. Okay? So all of this leads to the fact that we eat significantly less healthily when we eat out at a restaurant. So think about preparing your own food. I know it's time consuming, but think about preparing your own food rather than eating out at a restaurant. Okay? Now, which leads me to the next illusion. I've kind of been hinting to this, is do we really have control over what we're eating? Can we actually say no to junk food and unhealthy food? Because generally we know that a chocolate bar is less healthy for us than a whole grain carrot muffin, okay? But can we really say no to that creamy, toffee-ish Mars bar with the chocolate coating? And I say this because Sandra and I caved in to eating a Mars bar the other day because it was calling to us, okay? It really is. It's really hard to say no to these combinations of food. And you're not alone, and you're not crazy either, okay? There's actually very good scientific reasons for why this is happening. The first thing that you need to know about your body and the bodies of animals, not just humans, is that we are primed to seek out arousal situations. We want to be stimulated. We want to have our brains and our minds stimulated. And so when you eat highly palatable foods, foods that have combinations of salt and sugar and fat, you can think of a burger, for example. It's got the sugar in the bun, it's got the fat in the burger, and the salt in the burger, and the cheese as well if you're getting a cheeseburger. Okay? When we eat foods like that, it's very stimulating. You get the fat is like it's smooth on your tongue, and it's juicy, and your taste buds are all alive. They're working, right? So that's very stimulating, and it causes us to seek out situations that provide that stimulation. Okay? We see this because animals will enjoy eating sugary foods, they will enjoy eating fatty foods, and they will enjoy eating salty foods in some cases. But when you combine those together, the animals will actually work for those foods. They will run. If we look at rats running on a wheel, they will run even when they are full. When their bellies are full, they will still keep running to earn the right to eat combinations of those foods. So if animals are not immune to it, how do you expect humans to be immune to this combination? Okay. Now, I found a really interesting study that was talking about the fact that overweight mothers are more likely to have overweight children. When we think about this, we could think, well, maybe that's because overweight mothers have poor eating habits that they're passing on to their children, so socialization. And I would say that's a very good theory, and I'm not going to say it's wrong. But there was actually a scientific study done, published in Science magazine, which is a very well-renowned journal, that said that maybe it's actually because when those children are in their mother's wombs, their brain circuitry may actually be altered in some ways because of the mother's eating habits and the mother's weight. So that's really powerful. That's an example of how our behavior is now influencing our brains and our genetics. Okay? And then we have another psychological principle called condition-place paradigm. You might have heard of this, but if I were to place Smarties in a pile over here and electric shocks over here, okay? Sandra, which pile are you going to take?
Smarties. The
Smarties, okay? So I can train Sandra, I can train any one of you that this area over here is a pleasurable area because it's got Smarties, okay? And she won't want to go into this area because it's got negative associations to it. So the way you can think about this is your favorite restaurant. I love sushi. Anybody like sushi? Okay, good. So when I go to my favorite sushi restaurant in London, even if I just see the restaurant, it makes me feel happy. I actually feel really excited when I get the thought of going to my favorite sushi restaurant. In fact, thinking about it now puts a big smile on my face because I can picture going there and eating like spicy salmon rolls and seaweed salad and wonton soup. Okay, so all of these things, I know I've been conditioned to appreciate that place more. So therefore, it's learning is involved. You learn to appreciate good food and food that is bad for you, even though it tastes good. Okay? This combination of all of this is a really disastrous combination because the more stimulation you get, the more your neurons fire, which causes you to want more and more and more. Okay? So So, is the best time to say no to a sugary, salty, fatty food after you've had one bite of it? No. It's before you even saw the food, actually. Okay, that's the best time to say no. So the best time to say no is at the grocery store, before you put that bag of cookies in your cart, before you put that bag of chips in your cart. Because as soon as you get home, you're already done for. It's in your cupboard. So the next time you're bored or tired or stressed, all you have to do is open your cupboard and, cookies! And it's pleasurable, right? Makes us feel good. So even before you put them in your cart, think twice. Okay? The next thing I want to talk to you that really helps us down this negative pathway is about marketing. So marketing refers to advertising and also food costs as well. So the first illusion that I want to talk to you about is that we can resist what is advertised to us. Okay, so you see a commercial come on during your program, if you're watching, I don't know, House or Biggest Loser or whatever, and you see Chicken McNuggets. So McDonald's Chicken McNuggets commercial, okay? You probably will notice that you start thinking about Chicken McNuggets and you want to eat Chicken McNuggets. And you may think you're able to resist, but I would say the research shows that you're not, okay? Actually, 50% of consumers, when they go into the store, if they've been advertised to previously, they only take 1 second to make a decision about which brand they want. So if you advertise brands, so show lots and lots of commercials to somebody, or lots of ads in a paper or a magazine, that targets you so that you don't even think about it the next time you're in the store. You just pick up that brand and put it in your cart. Okay? Is 1 second enough time to read the entire nutrition facts table? No, not at all. It actually, it probably would take you about 20 seconds at least to fully grasp what's in the food you're eating. So, but who has that time, right? It's kind of unnecessary for me to tell you that none of us have the time these days. We're all bombarded with so many busy things that we don't have the time. So just be aware of this, that advertising to you does affect you. Okay? Furthermore, you guys have grown up, or many of you have grown up in a time where it was huge advertising to kids. Okay? And this is a really bad thing. It turns out that the World Health Organization has done research that shows that advertising food to children increases overall food consumption. Not even just whatever food was advertised, but all food. So children eat more food when they see any food advertised to them. They also prefer high-calorie, low-nutrient foods. Again, no matter what food was advertised to them, they still prefer high-calorie, low-nutrient foods. Okay? And it increases the positive attitudes toward those foods. So if a McDonald's commercial, I keep picking on McDonald's, so I do apologize, but if a McDonald's commercial comes on over and over in Dora the Explorer cartoon, that child watching that cartoon will begin to prefer McDonald's over any other fast food restaurant. Okay? One of the theories for why this happens is the mere exposure effect, which is a principle in psychology where the more you see something, the more you become familiar with it, and the more you prefer it. Okay, so interesting. Maybe we shouldn't be advertising to children. Okay, now who would agree with this statement? Put up your hand. Healthy food costs more. Okay. I kind of agree with you. When I go to the grocery store and I have my $25 or $50 or whatever it is I have to shop for the week for my groceries, I really pay attention to how much I'm spending on each food item. And will this food item fill me up and provide me with the amount of food that I need to eat that day? And so, yes, we notice that healthier food sometimes costs more. I want to challenge this a bit though, because it actually turns out that we are spending less of our incomes on food than we ever did before. 100 years ago, if you were not a farmer, you actually had to spend about 25 to 50% of your income on food. That means that today, in today's world, you are spending your money on fashionable clothing, on video game consoles, and it's not me to question this. I have pleasures in my life too that are not spending on food, right? But maybe we should be. Maybe we should be making those sacrifices and not buying the latest pair of shoes. And I know this is a huge sacrifice for me because I love shoes. And I know it's a stereotype, but really I love shoes. Okay, so to not buy a pair of shoes so that I could eat more healthily for a month, it kind of makes sense when you think about it, but we don't want to do it when we're actually in the store looking at that pair of shoes. Okay. The other thing I want you to know is that studies show that the most expensive healthy food is actually processed food that has been reduced in fat and sodium. So if you look at your can of Campbell's soup and it says 25% less sodium, you might pay a little bit more for that because they had to do more processing to maybe get it that way. Okay? But is that the only way to be healthy, is to buy processed foods that are low in sodium and fat? I would say no. Maybe consider buying unprocessed foods like the fruits and the vegetables. Okay? And I want you to get used to thinking of costs on a per nutrient basis. Sure, you can buy a burger for $1 or $1.99 on Wendy's meal of the day, and that might sustain you for a meal. But what are the nutrients in that meal? If you were to spend maybe $4 on a meal that you prepared yourself out of food from the grocery store, the nutrients in your meal might be double, triple, even quadruple the nutrients in the burger that you just bought. Okay, so think about it on a per nutrient basis. And the last thing I want you to think of is long-term costs. Has anyone seen the movie Food Inc.? Whatever your hand, have you seen it? Okay, good. So quite a few of you. It's a very interesting movie. I'd recommend it to if you're interested in this topic. But in the movie, there was a scene of one family that ate $1 burgers every day as their meal because they couldn't afford more expensive food. And the dad had developed diabetes, and their family was paying $150 per month for his medication for diabetes. And I found that highly ironic because if they had spent even $50 more per month the months previous to that, they could have maybe managed his diabetes in a way that was dietary as opposed to medicinally. Okay? So his quality of life would have been better, his health would have been better, in fact their whole family's health would have been better for just a little extra money. Okay? So maybe think of long-term costs instead of just immediate costs. Okay, and then I want to get into how we produce food and the relationship between food and our environment. This is a very thorny issue, and a lot of people are very passionate about it. So I definitely didn't want to leave it out. Okay? The first concept that I would like to talk to you about is the fact that our world actually produces far more food than we have ever produced before. Okay? Many times, like 3, 4, 5 times the amount of food that we actually were producing 100 years ago, 200 years ago. So does that mean that we are actually feeding more people? It should, because we're producing so much more food. But actually it turns out it's not the case. Okay? Although food production rates have drastically risen, we still notice almost 1 billion people in this world don't eat enough and are underweight because they live in extreme poverty. Okay? So where is all of this food going? Where is all of this extra food going? That's my question. That's what I want to know. Okay? What I find extremely frustrating is it's not going to the people who need to eat that food. It's actually going to the wealthiest countries. Okay? So the wealthiest countries are getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and we're not even helping the people who actually need that food. Something that's incredibly frustrating to me is the fact that there are more people in our world who are overweight than people who are underweight. I want to say that one more time. There are more people in our world who are overweight than people who are underweight. Do you guys think that's acceptable? No, I don't think it's acceptable at all. So something is not happening the way it's supposed to be happening. Okay? You could think of food transportation, government issues. There's lots and lots of issues about this. Okay? The final illusion I want to give to you today is that the way we are producing food is sustainable. And clearly, with the picture I put up on the screen, you can tell that I'm heading somewhere big, okay? It's definitely an illusion on this one, no question about it. I want to convince you that the research shows that our food is entirely 100% reliant on oil. Even organic foods, even healthy foods these days, and foods that come from local places, they still use tractors. They still use farm equipment. They still have to package their foods. And so we are entirely reliant on oil. For instance, pesticides and fertilizers. Fertilizers in the old days, you guys want to know? It was poop and dead bodies. Seriously. When animals pooed, they threw that poo into the field, and it got mixed around, and it was manure and helped the soil become healthy. Also, dead bodies. Animals died, insect died, humans died. They all threw it in together, and it became like compost. Okay? So that was previous fertilizer. You guys want to know what fertilizer is made out of today? Oil. Okay? Pesticides. You think about pesticides in the olden days, well, we had the birds ate the insects. Okay? And even if there was some sort of bacteria or plague that came along, in a whole field there was a lot of genetic variability between the plants. So if this plant got hit with something, this plant beside it wouldn't necessarily die because they might have a slightly separate strain. And that's not the case today. We have something called monocropping, where we plant the same exact plant all throughout an entire field. So if something comes along that's dangerous to that, it's either going to die or we have to zap it with a very powerful pesticide. Guess what those pesticides are made from? Oil, or very dangerous chemicals. Okay? Then we can think of the farm equipment. You have to till your land, you have to plant the seed, you then have to go around with water or lay tile to help the water not pool in certain places in your farm. You then have to help it grow, so again, you're spraying fertilizer and pesticide, you're harvesting it. All of that equipment, oil. Okay? Once it's harvested, you send it to a processing plant. So if you think of Weetabix cereal or Cheerio cereal, maybe it has wheat in it. Okay, that wheat has to be processed. It has to be milled down into flour. And that equipment that mills it down runs on oil. Okay, are you noticing a theme here? I know I'm being kind of childish saying it over and over, but I don't think so. I think we need to have a big wake-up call on this. Okay? Not only that, the most frustrating thing for me is packaging. Okay? Plastics are made out of, guess what, guys? Oil. Okay? Plastics are made out of oil. And so when you go to the meat department and you select your ground beef, the shiny plastic sheen on top of it and the styrofoam from underneath of it, oil. And the thing that I actually find most baffling that's packaged, and somebody tell me an answer because I just don't know, is cucumbers. Why are cucumbers packaged in plastic? Tomatoes aren't. Zucchinis aren't. Broccoli isn't. So why are cucumbers packaged in plastic? I just don't know. And it baffles me because that is oil. Okay? And then once you've packaged your product, you then have to ship it. Okay? Do you know the average meal that you eat today has traveled farther than the average North American vacation, which is about 2,000 kilometers. So your meal that you're eating has traveled farther than you have, ever. One meal. So you should be going on vacation if you eat locally. I just teased it. But that's oil, okay? That's oil. Ships, trucks, trains, okay, even planes sometimes. All oil, okay? Do you now agree with me that we are 100% reliant on oil? Okay, that was my mission, okay? Now that I've told you that we are 100% reliant on oil, let me give you the doomsday, okay? We are running out of oil. Okay, scientists and engineers have said that the rate that we are producing oil is really declining. And they predict that the peak of our oil production is actually going to be around the end of this decade. So now that's not when we will run out of oil, but that's our peak of the amount of oil that we have. So if you are complaining about gas prices for your car, or complaining complaining because the bus company is charging you more per ticket, then you should maybe be taking a good long look at the food you're eating. Okay? Oil. And if you watch all of these food documentaries, they paint a pretty dismal picture about the fact that we do not currently have the technology in place and the infrastructure in place to make that swap once we run out of oil. I predict, and if you guys anyone want a career that will be secure, okay, I predict if you go into sustainable farming technologies, you will have a good long career for a little while. Okay, at least 20, 30 years. Because that's what we're going to need when we run out of oil. Okay? So I probably depressed you a little bit, I think, right? I told you all how we're killing the environment. I've told you about how we can't say no to unhealthy food, and we don't even know how healthy we are. So what exactly do we do to get back on track? Okay? It is going to take a lot of work, and this is not something you can do in one day. However, I do want you to take small steps. Okay? Take a look at Occupy. Remember Occupy New York, Occupy London? You guys remember that a couple weeks back, a couple months back? That was organized with just a few individuals taking a few small steps, and it turned into this global thing. So if they could put together that, then I'm sure that we could have even smaller changes that become then major changes. Okay? The biggest thing I want you to take away from this talk is your awareness. I want you to become more aware. Wake up and smell the oil, okay? Wake up and smell your health or lack thereof, okay? I'm guilty. Look at me. I eat junk food. I'm teaching you guys on this, and I still eat badly sometimes, okay? We all need to be more aware, okay? Be more aware of the foods we're eating, where it was produced, how it was produced, okay? And how is it affecting your brain and your behavior? So the next time you pick up a French fry off of your friend's plate, think before you put that French fry in your mouth. Because I know this firsthand. My professor friend Jenny is sitting back there in the audience, and she went and got French fries one time, because we all love French fries, and I picked one up off of her plate, and I ate it, and I was like, oh, French fries. Okay, and what did I do? I went down to the cafeteria and got myself French fries. Okay, I'm not blaming Jenny. She's so nice, and she was so kind to offer me that French fry. It was my own fault. I should have been able to say no before I even took that one French fry. Okay, so recognize patterns of behavior and how to turn those around. The final thing that I want you to do is I want you to become more involved in your society. Okay? Do you guys like the fact that you do not have a choice about whether you're eating genetically modified foods or unmodified foods? I don't. I would like to see a package, on a package, say, this wheat was genetically modified. Therefore, if I chose to eat it, then it's my own fault. Right? So I would really encourage you to write letters to your MPs. Get involved in political forums. Go to your city council meetings and insist that they do the things that you want. Okay? And then finally, demand lower cost foods, healthy foods, even here on campus. Guys, if let's say 25% of the student body decided that they were going to tell Fanshawe administration that we want lower costs on healthy food, they would do it. I'm telling you, they would do it. Even with me, I once went to a grocery store and I noticed that they did not have any yellow squash. Yellow squash is kind of like a zucchini, it's just yellow. And I love yellow squash. So I asked the grocery manager, do you guys know, will you get this? Because it's in season right now. And he's like, oh, well, kind of whatever. And so I came back a few days later, and blow me down, what was sitting on there? Yellow squash. I literally did a bit of a dance in the store. I was like, oh yeah, yellow squash, because I couldn't believe that I was one person who asked for something and it happened. Okay? Be that one person who asks for something and see how it happens if all of us do it. Okay? You never know what will happen unless you ask. So I hope you got something out of my talk today. I really appreciate you coming, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.